Hey, today I'm going to show you exactly how to do a full IELTS Task 1 from beginning to end. I'm going to show you how to go through all the steps necessary to write a really awesome IELTS Task 1. Hey guys, Anthony Schultz here from Gold Coast IELTS, where I help you absolutely destroy the IELTS writing exam. You know what? A lot of my students always ask me, how do you do the IELTS Task 1? I explain it to them, but they still don't get it. And then they ask me to do a demonstration in the class. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to show you all the steps you need to go through to write a great Task 1. It might take a little while, but stay to the end. And there's a bunch of cool stuff in the description below, so follow the links. If you do get value from my videos, hit the like and subscribe buttons and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my latest IELTS writing tips. Okay guys, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to be in Google Docs today. I've got this beautiful bar chart opened up and we're going to use this one to write our Task 1. There are a couple of ways to start. Firstly, you could either get straight stuck into it and do the introduction, or you could look at it for a little while and think and come up with the key trends and the details. What I'm going to do, I'm going to think about it first, come up with the key trend, the details, and then I'm going to start writing the introduction after that. So let's take a look at this and think about a great key trend to get started. So the key trend is just the first thing you see when you look at the chart. For me, the very first thing I see, 2 small groups down the end and 3 big groups over here. So I'm going to come up with a key trend like this. 3 expenses accounted for the most. After we get that key trend, we need to come up with 2 or maybe 3 details to write about in the second paragraph. So for me, a good detail would be that Japan spent the most on food out of all the other expenses. Okay, so I'm going to put for my first detail that Japan spent the most on food. Of course, I'm not going to write this in my essay. This is just an idea. I'm going to use this idea and make some really beautiful English in my big body paragraph. So the second detail I see is that if we look at housing, the US, Canada, and the UK spent more on housing than they did on other expenses. So I'm going to say for my second detail, housing was the largest expense in the US, Canada, and the UK. So far we've only been talking about these big groups for our details. If we come down to the small end of the chart, I can see in healthcare there's something a little bit strange happening with the UK. The other 3 are all, just under 5% or even up around 7.5%, but the UK is right down there on 1.5%. So my third detail is going to be the healthcare anomaly in the UK. Okay, so now we've got our key trend, our detail 1, detail 2, detail 3. Now we can start to write the intro of this chart. Okay, so let's try to write the intro. I'm going to have 2 sentences in my introduction. The S1 is going to be all about paraphrasing the title of the chart. The S2 is going to give the key trend that we came up with above, okay, in the purple language. So here's the S1 for my intro. It says the line chart shows how much money people in 4 different countries spent on 5 different kinds of everyday expenses in 2009. I've changed the language from the title above in the chart. I've rearranged some of the language a little bit, and it's a nice little introductory sentence. Next, I'm going to do the S2, and that's simply the key trend from the chart. And I would write something like this. Overall, it can be seen that 3 expenses, food, housing, and transportation, accounted for a much greater part of the expenses than the other 2, healthcare and clothing. Okay guys, so that intro, I believe, is around about 50 words, which is quite big. We could quite easily make it shorter by deleting those words and deleting those words. Then it's going to come down closer to 40, which is a little bit better. Around 35 to 40 is going to be perfect for us. Let's go ahead now and check out the details and comparison section. Okay, so I've reduced the size of the intro and I've begun the body paragraph or the details in comparison with the linking language. So I've just put the linking language in there to give me some ideas to help me get started. I've said, looking in greater detail, it can be seen that, for example, whereas, although, and finally. And you can see that those middle two paragraphs are comparisons which are taking care of part of the question. So for the S1, I've written, looking in greater detail, it can be seen that different countries prioritized different expenses. This is just a nice general sentence to get us started, okay? It's got a nice little modal plus perfect tense there and that beautiful linking language at the beginning. For sentence 2, I'm just going to talk about that detail number 1 up there. Japan spent the most on food. And I'm going to say, for example, Japanese people spent much more on food and relatively less on transportation, whereas the people in the US and Canada spent nearly 10% on food. So that second detail we got was housing is the largest expense in the US, Canada, and the UK. So if I was to write that in really nice English, I'd say something like, although housing was the largest expense in the UK, Canada, and the US, in Japan, housing was only the second largest household expense. So the last sentence, I'm going to talk about this detail 3, the anomaly in healthcare in the UK, and I'll say something like this sentence here. Finally, when it comes to healthcare, most countries were around the 4.5 to 7.5 mark. Only the UK showed a very small percentage, about 1.5%. I've done something a little bit different in this sentence. I used that great linker finally, plus I used a semicolon which tells the audience some kind of explanation is going to follow. So that's going to get you a nice mark for the grammar. You're using some different kind of punctuation right there. So finally, we're going to add a summary. A lot of people don't like to add a summary because they think that that second sentence of the intro is replacing the summary. I like to do a little summary to give it some balance, to give, the whole essay, the whole task 1, a little bit of balance. So in the first sentence of the summary down there, I'm going to just sort of repeat this a little bit again, but with different words. And in the S2, I'm going to give sort of my final thought from my own attitude about the chart. I'm going to show you how to do it now. So here's my S1 of the summary. To summarize, this bar chart shows us that for some expenses like clothing, expenditure trends are quite similar, but for others like healthcare and food, the trends vary a lot. So for my final sentence, I've said this. As it happens, these are all quite wealthy countries, which might account for the similarities. So this information is not in the chart about wealthy countries. This is from my own knowledge. I don't recommend doing this a lot in the task 1, but I think once should be okay. So it's got that nice cognitive stance connector at the beginning to show the reader that this is my attitude. This is coming from my own knowledge. So here's the completed IELTS Task 1. You can read it slowly in your own time if you'd like. I've underlined all the linking words. If you look really carefully, you can see a lot of the linkers are actually to signify comparisons, which is part of the question and really important. So guys, feel free to copy this, use as many parts of it as you like in your own IELTS Task 1s. Thanks for checking it out. So that's how you write an IELTS Task 1 from beginning to end. At least that's my process of when I do it for my students. If you like this video, guys, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.